Well, hello and welcome. We're at the World Economic Forum, certainly on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, where India is very much a focus. It is every single year. One of the governments, the state governments, doing a great deal of work in terms of talking about key issues, whether it is job transformation, artificial intelligence, sustainability, or perhaps even the climate, is the government of Andhra Pradesh, one of our most vibrant states, looking to really explain the Andhra Pradesh story to a global audience, certainly a lot of people over here. Nara Lokesh, who we have with us, one of our young leaders who has a real interest in artificial intelligence and technology and in bringing tech and industry together to benefit millions across the state. He is also the IT Minister of Andhra Pradesh. He looks after electronics, communications, and HRD. What we are talking about today is artificial intelligence for good, shaping a smarter, sustainable tomorrow. And we've got a wonderful panel with us. Matt Renner is President of Global Revenue at Google Cloud. Thanks very much for being with us. Archana Vyas, who I've worked with very closely for many years, Director Program Advocacy at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Emily Sfelli is the Director of Partnerships and Initiatives at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Thank you very much for being with us. Nara Lokesh, let me come to you first. When we talk about AI and public good, it can only happen if there is the public sector and the private sector working together. A lot of the technology comes from outside, but you have your own idea of how it will work. How is that partnership crucial?
I mean, Andhra Pradesh is always known for being at the cutting edge of technology and governance, or GovTech as we call it. In the third term of Mr. Naidu, we have the Real-Time Governance Center in place. And that was where we are assimilating all the data across various data sets and how can we use it for real-time decision making. But now with AI arriving, I think it can fundamentally transform governance. And I'll give you a few examples of what we're doing. First one is education. From being a passive learner to an active learner in the classroom. So we're doing this project where it's a 45 minutes class, and then you have a 2-minute video, which we're working with the Khan Academy. And we're coming up with 5 questions at the end and gamifying it and giving kids a clicker, a simple clicker with A, B, C, D option. And sort of gamifying it and using AI to actually prescribe homework based on results. And we want to track this data in a very, very long term. So that's one example of it. The other example is using AI in identifying beneficiaries for various government programs. That's the second project that we're doing. Third project is delivery of government services using technology. So we have an agreement where through various platforms we can now deliver. And one of it being ahead is Meta on it.
Right.
WhatsApp governance, as we call it. And we're also working with Google in a similar platform. So I think there's a role to play. Government's job is to open up and create use cases that can then be scaled up.
Yep.
But then, of course, I think the initiative will also have to be led by the innovators across the world.
In fact, Matt Renner, that brings me to the role of Google. And, before we started this conversation, you were telling me a little bit about specific examples. I was fascinated by what Google brings in terms of AI and healthcare. And I also do believe that when it comes to diagnosing illnesses long distance, using the benefits of AI, it could have massive impacts in a country as large as India. Could you share a few examples of what Google is doing?
Sure, and again, I think anywhere that you have a lot of data that you could crunch very quickly and come up with an accurate answer, AI is a great use case in most cases than not. For maternal health is a good use case that we're working in India at this point. One of the issues we had around mammograms and the time behind a mammogram was the time around diagnosis and the length of time, and how it impacted the ultimate result. Prior to AI and prior to utilizing these models, it took upwards of 5 days to get the result back to the patient. Problem with that is only about 20% of the patients came back once they got the information about this to go back to the doctor. So the AI use case we now put together is we can do a mammogram, run the numbers with very extreme accuracy within 5 minutes. So the patient hasn't left the doctor's office, right? So that's a good example of not just speeding up something for productivity, but it's a good example of changing the outcome, which I think is super important when you talk about health.
So AI actually analyzes a mammogram, it sort of diagnoses whatever it is, passes on that information to the doctor. So you've got essentially two eyes one real eye, one artificial eye, be that as it may, but potential solutions and certainly a diagnosis. That's what it does, right?
In that specific use case, yes. Right.
Could you give us a few more examples of?
Sure.
Of,
in healthcare, some of the things we're doing. So there's in all variations, right? These some opportunities to look into AlphaFold, which again is genomic 3D imaging, where you can that was released by DeepMind within Google, but ultimately is pattern. That's a public global scenario that Demis Hassabis, and I know he's having a chance to meet with Bill Gates this week, but Demis had won the Nobel Peace Prize for this, right? Ultimately, yes. He and Mr. Jumper as well on our team. So a fantastic example where that's more just for research, as you're digging into research. When you get into diagnosis, and I gave that example for a mammogram, but even the diagnosis around cancer itself. So the contouring process where you're going to apply radiation usually takes somewhere between 7 or 8 hours for a technician to go through all of your slides, all of your pictures, if you will, to find what's the healthy tissue versus the cancerous tissue and where to apply the radiation. By applying AI models to that, in this specific case, you could take that down into about a third the time, even a quarter the time. Why does that matter? More time with the patient, see more patients, diagnose more patients, right? At the end of the day, and when you're dealing with India, right, with this incredible number of people that have to go through, a lot of times it's the bottlenecks that you run into that we're trying to clear when you talk about healthcare. So probably an example there which bleeds into treatment as well, but that from that effect.
Now, Lokesh, how would you roll something out like this, where every last district potentially has access to an AI diagnosis to speed up treatment of patients?
If you look at it, there are few tools that have come out where by doing just a facial scan and using AI, the basic health parameters actually can be captured. And a few of them are under FDA review. So there is a potential to actually roll this out for every citizen. And this is a great way of democratizing healthcare in that sense. And doing pre-diagnosis of this. And then, of course, deploying all the tools that you just explained. That's post a test. So can we look at preventive healthcare proactively? And I think that's where AI can play a very, very important role. And what I just shared is one of the tools that's under consideration.
Yeah. Archana, let's look at some of the other potentially transformative areas which involve AI. Climate change is a huge problem. Public health crises are some other issues which we are all dealing with. I think my question to you has to do with equity. And AI is available to some, it's not necessarily available to others. In as much as we have a 5G revolution in India, we are heading to a 6G revolution in India, there are deep divides between those who actually have smartphones and those who don't. Therefore, how do you and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation deal with the issue of AI and equity?
First of all, I must congratulate for putting AI for social good on the agenda. So my congratulations to you, Minister. One, I think